Over those 8 years, there were 3 million people that were deported and separated from their families. Yeah. We had this classification of families.
Well, you should vote for Trump.
Families.
You should vote for Trump.
And no, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, of course he's not going to do that.
Well, maybe he should, Emma.
Let's talk about y'all.
Middle America.
Let's listen to the president.
Let's not. Let's listen to me and DL Beluga. Who is me? I'm Vin. That's DL Beluga. And we're Middle America, and we're going to be talking about our policy de inmigración, or as it's normally known as our immigration policy. Now, I hold to what's called biblical borders. I made up the term myself, which is essentially everybody comes in. And you're a citizen, and you're a citizen. Yeah, that's me. I hold to what I call biblical borders, which is open borders. You're not an open borders guy.
No.
What are you?
So if you look, so I have a priority list for the nation, personally, and I mean, it could be public. It should be public, but the way I look at policy is it should be viewed through the lens of a priority list. And obviously this list assumes that the controversial phrase America First is obviously applied there. So, with that in mind, my priority list, I have basically two of them so far that are really important, is I want to make this the safest nation in the world, or I want this to be the safest nation in the world, and I want this to be the richest nation in the world, and that, yes, that applies to everyone, not just wealthy people. So, with that in mind, and with the America First mentality in mind, which is what every ruler of his nation should have in mind, is his country. With that in mind, if you look at Latin America and Mexico, you will note that these are extremely dangerous places, and these are places that you wouldn't want your daughter or your kids around. So you wouldn't want them coming into your country, being exposed to the perfectly good citizens of America. Now, of course, not all of them are perfectly good citizens, but it is the president's job to make sure his country is good. So we should be vetting people before they come in here, and also it helps to learn the language.
Yeah, and Beluga's position has been pretty much America's position since I can remember. It was certainly Mr. Clinton's position. It was obviously Bush's position. It was certainly Obama's position, which is why in the intro to this video we saw the Mexican activist who was talking to Mr. Biden and saying, what are you going to do differently than your predecessor and your former boss? Because you guys deported like 3 million of us, destroyed families, yada, yada, yada. And what was Biden's response to this Mexican fella?
Some actual good advice.
What was the advice?
To vote for Trump.
Vote for Trump. Go vote for Trump. This guy had so much disdain and disrespect for this Mexican fella. I think he looked insulted that this guy would even call him to task at my own town hall meeting. So
I think he feels entitled to minority votes because he's a Democrat.
Of course. And, yeah, of course. You know, he still has that mentality that a lot of the old racist white people had, that people of color just belong to them. That's why he got on Charlemagne the God show and said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. This man has zero respect for minorities in any way, shape, or form. He has no respect for minorities whatsoever. But then all of my friends, all my left liberal friends were saying, Vin, if you don't advocate for voting for Biden, you hate immigrants, blah, blah, blah. He's a fascist, blah, blah, blah. Okay. All right. Well, here's Kamala. I don't know how to pronounce her name properly.
Me either.
Here's Kamala Harris, okay? And this is Kamala Harris talking about Trump's immigration policy while she was running for president. By the way, if you want to be part of the conversation, I may have said it already. Facebook.com/America Middle. Completely free. Join the conversation. We're actually going to be hosting a debate about anarchism and if it could ever blend with American society. So we got really cool stuff coming along the way. Here's Kamala Harris, though.
Let's listen to the president on immigration.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to skip this part.
I'm sure it's
but
no,
it's not. I mean, like I said, it's Trump's basic policy where he basically says, we're full. We're packed to the gills,
This
Trump
is
says.
the first time I ever heard that.
Yeah, he said, you want to hear him say it? Okay, here
No, I
it
don't
is.
want to hear him say it. It's probably taking that. I want to see the entire thing.
Is full. We don't want people coming up here. Our country is full. We want Mexico to stop. We want all of them to stop. Our country is packed to the gills. We don't want them.
Okay, that should be a Trump. Our country is packed to the gills. Now, here is Ms. Harris's response to this very xenophobic response by Mr. Trump. Here is Kamala.
Can't afford a $400 unexpected expense. And on the issue of immigration, he has also defied who we are morally and who we say we are to the world. We have always presented ourselves as being a nation of strength with strong arms, that when people are fleeing harm, we will embrace them. But look at what has happened with this administration. There are children who are fleeing murder capitals of the world. Let's be clear about this. Imagine a mother who makes a decision to pay a coyote to transport her child across the entire country of Mexico, facing unknown peril. She does that because she believes for that child to stay where they are is worse. But what does this president do? He virtually looks at those children and says, go back to where you came from. What do we have in this president? A policy that was about taking children, separating them from their parents, and calling...
Okay, so people who are fleeing murder capitals in Latin America should be able to come here and seek asylum. And if you push them back, you're going against a very moral framework of what it means to be an American. Isn't that what she said?
That's what she said.
And that Trump is a horrible person because he keeps telling these people to stay home. Go back where you came from, she said. You know, she put a little accent in there.
She did?
Yeah. Go back where you came from. But I think anybody with a heart and a brain can see the reasonableness in what Miss Harris was saying. It is reasonable that a person who is a mother who has a child in a very dangerous area would want to escape from that area, especially if that area has been destabilized by U.S. intervention. See Venezuela in 2020. But we continue. Here we go. So Ms. Harris is worried about people who are in violent contexts and murder capitals of the world not being able to find asylum. Now, Guatemala is one of these murder capitals of the world. Here's the facts on Guatemala, dear listener. Murders are a serious problem in Guatemala. The country has had one of the highest murder rates in the world. But less than 4% of the murders end in conviction. That's right, 96% of the killings in Guatemala are not brought to justice. Do you know why that is? Because there is rampant corruption in the government and the police force. That's why. We continue. Amnesty International stated in 2007 that there is a culture of impunity with regard to homicide. You don't say. In 2013, there were over 6,000 violent deaths. Most of these are related to local criminal gangs. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, there are roving gangs that terrorize the living hell out of the citizens of Guatemala. We continue. According to the U.S. State Department, Guatemala's high murder rate is caused by 4 principal factors: an increase in drug trafficking, a growing prevalence of gang-related violence, which can be attributed to the drug trafficking, a heavily armed civilian population, and a weak and incompetent political judicial system. Well, the political system is not incompetent, it's corrupt. In September 2019, the government announced that a state of siege in the 5 northeastern provinces after 3 police officers were killed by drug traffickers. Sexual violence, Sexual crimes, including sex exploitation of minors, are common in Guatemala.
Common.
Foreigners from the U.S., Canada, and Europe also participate in commercial sexual exploitation of children in Guatemala. That's right. You have these American tourists. They go to Thailand. They go to New Zealand, who completely lifted all restrictions on the sex trade. Congratulations, New Zealand. Ever since you guys did that, you have been at the top of the human trafficking report published by the State Department every single year since you've done that. Congratulations to New Zealand. But we're not talking about New Zealand right now. We're talking about Guatemala. Guatemala is one of the highest murder capitals in the world. It's got a corrupt justice system. So you're scared to death for your life every single day, which is why the citizens are now packing. And then on top of that, you've got little girls and little boys being kidnapped and then sex trafficked so they can be purchased by North American sick, evil people. So that is the context, Mr. Beluga, in which a lot of these folks are fleeing to the country. This is why they're fleeing to the country. And I have to say, as Carlos Melendez points out, this is not climate change.
What do you mean?
Climate change isn't the problem. You got some very far left people saying that climate change is the real reason, blah, 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 blah.
For immigration?
Yeah, because of lack of resources. As a matter of fact, Kamala was the one that was saying the next revolution, the first wars were fought over oil, the next ones will be fought over water. Because she's saying, because people's natural resources are depleting, they're going to other places, blah, blah, blah. No, the Guatemalans are fleeing because their country is in an absolute tailspin because of what we just read earlier. Now, recently, did you know this? Miss Kamala Harris, our vice president, who all of us, because we're people of color, everybody in this house was supposed to be very happy and overjoyed at the fact.
That's true. Everyone's not black as a woman.
Yeah, correct. Everybody was overjoyed at the fact in this household that you had an African American. Untrue, she's not African American.
She's Chinese.
That we had a person of color in such a powerful position, and then all the girls in the house are supposed to be happy because there is a woman in such a powerful position. And this is a person who we just got done hearing Kamala talk about. These people wouldn't make this trek if they weren't in serious duress. Would you agree with that? They wouldn't make the trek unless they were in serious duress with their kids and such?
I know what this supposed trek looks like.
Well, I mean, they're going from Guatemala to Mexico on foot, and then from Mexico to America.
Oh, on foot?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
With these coyotes.
It's
yeah,
a trek.
it's extremely dangerous. Okay, well, let's see what Miss Harris has to say. So here's Kamala. Here's Kamala.
And I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back.
Whoa, when is this?
This is like 2 days ago, little bro. Here it is. Here's Kamala.
And I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back.
U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris in Guatemala on Monday said she had robust talks with Guatemalan President Alejandro Yamatei on the need to fight corruption and deter undocumented immigration to the United States from the Central American nation, where she had one resounding message for those considering making the dangerous journey.
Do not come. Do not come.
The vice president, in her first
Whoa,
foreign trip,
whoa! Do not come? You'll be sent back? That can't be right, DL.
This is in the Biden administration.
That was 2 days ago, my brother. No, that can't be right. Because earlier she was telling us that Trump was a sociopath or some horrible person because he was saying, go back where you came from. Isn't that what she said when she was running for office? Let's look at this again. This can't be right. We must have misheard her. Let's watch this again.
And I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back.
They will?
U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris in Guatemala on Monday said she had robust talks with Guatemalan President Alejandro Yamatei on the need to fight corruption and deter undocumented immigration to the United States from the Central American nation, where she had one resounding message for those considering making the dangerous journey.
Here it is.
Do not come. Do not come.
The vice president...
Do not come. Don't come over here. Now, my brother, what is the material difference between telling somebody, go back to where you came from, and telling someone, don't come over here? You will be sent back. What's the difference?
Nothing.
There is none. There is no difference. America performed a coup in Guatemala in 1954. The corrupt justice system was put in place by us. Now, Ben Webb is a knowledgeable individual. Do your own research on that. But I would not be surprised if Mr. Webb was telling the truth. And this dovetails actually very nicely with AOC's comment on this particular situation. Here's AOC's comment in response to Miss Harris.
Oh, yeah, June 7th.
First, this is disappointing to see. AOC's disappointed. You know, disappointment can only be activated when you have an expectation for something else, right?
Yeah.
Like if I expect a cheese pizza with pepperoni and instead you show up with a nasty hamburger swimming in mayonnaise, that is disappointing to me, right? Yeah. Because I expected the pizza. AOC, my sister, are you saying that you really thought that Joe Biden, who was the vice president of the deporter-in-chief, Joe Biden, who told an activist when he complained about those deportations, when he told that brother, go vote for Trump, all of that put together, and then when you combine Kamala Harris's love of the prison industrial complex and how she built her entire career on the backs of black and brown men and women by stowing them away like animals in the criminal justice system in order to further her political aspirations. Are you saying, AOC, that you're surprised that you had an expectation that the Guatemalans were going to be told anything different?
Oh, she's so naive.
Oh, poor AOC. First, seeking asylum at any U.S. border is 100% a legal method of arrival.
Yep, that's true.
Second, the U.S. spent decades contributing to regime change and destabilization in Latin America. We can't help set someone's house on fire and then blame them for fleeing. Sounds pretty rational to me. And if what Ben said about 1954 is correct, then AOC's comment makes even more sense, which is why we have an open source sort of live stream collaborative reporting on Middle America, because we realize we don't know anything or everything. So there's Kamala Harris. Go home, Guatemalans. But when Trump does it, it's horror. It's the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on the AOC situation?
I mean, why is she still in politics? Honestly, she should go back to bartending, because that's probably the thing that you can take at this point.
Here we go.
I'm serious. No.
Here we go. So in one second, we've got Tasco, who's going after me for being.
No, look, it's sarcastic. Read the entire thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He's going after me, and I know why he's going after me, because in another video I keep saying you cannot blame AOC for not being a progressive warrior. She's a young, very, very young person in her 30s, and Bernie Sanders already bent the knee, blah, blah, blah. So AOC gets it from the right, which would be Beluga, basically saying she needs to go back to bartending, or the left, which is Tasco, and Jimmy Dore and the rest of them who have. So poor AOC. I've never been a fan of AOC. I don't like her politics or whatever. But I end up in this strange predicament of having to defend Shorty. But this is not where we are now. Why are you saying that she needs to go back to her?
Well, you just said she's getting it from the left and from the right. Obviously, if you're pissing off the left and the right, you're doing something wrong.
No, I think you're completely wrong. I think the opposite is true. I think if you're pissing off the left and the right, you're doing something right. That's what I think.
Well, she obviously doing something right.
I get very, very, very nervous when I see the left wing and the right wing agreeing on something. So, for example, at Trump's last town hall, or a State of the Union. Remember when they had stood up the guy who was trying to take over Venezuela, and then Pelosi and everybody stood up clapping for the guy who was trying to take over, initiate a coup in Venezuela. Yeah, which is, again, another Latin American country that we're putting our fingers all through for some reason. Look, man, I think it's horrible what's happening in Venezuela. I think it's horrible what's happening in the Triangle. I think it's horrible what's happening in Guatemala as far as Latin America go. But at the end of the day, if you voted for Joe Biden, I believe that you really cared about those people in that Latin American triangle and the hardship that they're going through. If you voted for Biden, I believe that you genuinely care for those people. But I've said this over and over again about Biden. He has never, ever pretended to be anything other than the racist that he is. Never. He has never pretended to be anything other than that. And Miss Harris, I told people, because I shot a Kamala Harris video when Biden announced that was going to be his running mate. And I told people, Kamala Harris is, they had Stacey Abramson, a girl from Georgia. Say what you want, but she exposed the voter suppression stuff down there in Atlanta. She really, I don't want to say single-handedly, but she's massively responsible for flipping that state blue. Was she given the ring? Nope. Who did they give the ring to? They gave the ring to Kamala Harris, who has spent the majority of her professional life using the legal apparatus to destroy black people and further the cause of white supremacy in the western side of America. And she was rewarded by getting the ring. That's why he took her and not Abramson, because Abramson was actually going to do something for people of color and had actually done something for people of color. Kamala was just a person of color, but she was completely sold out like a good house Negro to Mr. Biden. That's a fact. So now the hypocrisy is in clear and full relief. And the biggest thing that pisses me off about this whole situation, she's in Guatemala. She has yet to go to the border where there's currently a crisis and currently still children in cages right now in the southern border over there in our country.
Why does she need to go to the border?
Correct. A lot of people ask
why.
Why?
Oh, you did hear the question?
Because Mr. Biden put her. He said, "You know what? This is Kamala's show." So
I don't understand what she's supposed to do physically at the border.
Well, people are saying, "Hey, you had all these opinions on Twitter when it was Trump."
Yeah.
And on top of that, all these Republicans now all of a sudden cared about these people at the border. So now Ted Cruz and all these other chuckleheads are going to the border, crybabying about all the situation. So people are saying, Kamala, it looks like you're disinterested in what's going on down there, and you're letting the Republicans dominate the narrative because they keep going over there. So go down there and act like you care about these people. You remember when AOC did the little photo op thing when she was crying, she put her hands on her knees and all this stuff. She was doing all the crocodile tails. This is a big thing that pisses me off about this entire situation. Is that these, I'm not going to say leftists because they're not. These people in the Republicans in the Democratic Party, let's say it that way, pretended for 4 years that they cared about these people at the border. When I was saying over and over again, these people do not care about these people at all. They're using their suffering to their political advantage, and that's really disgusting to do. Yeah. Really nasty stuff. When you clearly don't care about a group of people, but you're going to use their suffering as a political fool. It's the same thing with what the Republicans are doing now at the southern border. It's completely, I do not understand as a Christian how God allows these people to not get swallowed up by the earth when they have these ridiculous press conferences at the border, pretending that they care. When Ted Cruz a year ago said nothing about the sexual assaults that were happening to these kids at the border, nothing about them being missing, yada, yada, yada. But now Cruz all of a sudden cares about these Mexican kids over there at the border. And it's the exact same thing. Kamala Harris and the rest of those evil, disingenuous people sat there for 4 years and went after Trump and were crying and taking fake photos and all this other nonsense. When in reality, you didn't care about those people. You went on TV and told all those people that Trump was a bad person for saying, go back home. You try to make it sound like it was a simplistic issue, Miss Harris. And you try to blackball Mr. Trump for doing exactly what you're now doing. Only worse. That's unforgivable. Unforgivable to use the suffering of those people to get yourself into office. And now that you're in office, you have the exact same message. Really sick stuff. And if you still don't see it because you're too prideful to admit that you got duped by establishment media, they duped you into really believing this nonsense that Trump was some sort of crossbreed between the Antichrist, Hitler, Stalin, and Mussolini. You believe that nonsense. So you ignored the 40 plus years of Mr. Biden's record and the 20 plus years of Miss Harris's record. You ignored that because you went with the nonsense. And now here you go. Our tax dollars are continuing to go to oppress people all over the world, to kill innocent people all over the world. No Medicare for all. No $15 minimum wage. No $2,000 stimmy. Let's channel more money to build a wall.
And the Harriet Tubman $20 bill.
Where's the Harriet Tubman $20 bill?
Oh, well.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Always remember the modern Democratic Party is further right than Thatcher. The Republicans are somehow further right than that. If you think there's a single humanitarian in U.S. politics, you're wrong. Well, I think Ben is speaking in hyperbole. I think that Bernie Sanders...
Thatcher?
Yeah. I think Bernie Sanders is a humanitarian. I just think that he's weak and he's feckless and he doesn't have any fight in him. That's what I believe about Bernie. I also believe that AOC desperately is a humanitarian and desperately wants to do something.
You just said about her crocodile tears.
Yes, but that was for a reason. I believe that she genuinely wants change at the border. I just don't think I don't think she knows how to solve the problem in a more humane way. Neither do I.
The problem is that these people keep pushing it out like everyone who has a border crisis under their administration is a bad person.
Yeah.
It's just a difficult situation, and I think one of the biggest problems is logistics. So when she spends all this time just enjoying about the border instead of being like, oh, well, it must be hard for him to get all those people in, then she's forced to do that instead of saying, well, it was a hard thing to do. Let's try to get bipartisan support on this.
Well, yeah, and that's that's so good. And that's why I made the point to say that while I hold to biblical borders or open borders, I don't know how the first thing about practically executed. That's why I said at the beginning. Why? Because this border issue is extremely complex. And you're right, Beluga. They took an extremely complex situation that they know is extremely complex.
Well, I'm about AOC. I don't know if you knew that.
And I'm talking about the machine. They knew it was extremely complex, and yet they tried to communicate to the American people as if this was just some simple solution, and the only thing holding Trump back was his xenophobia and his race. What we need is less performative acts by people on the left and the right, and to stop acting like these people are chess pieces on your giant game, and actually get together and come up with real-world 21st and 22nd century solutions to this issue of immigration. It's a very complex issue. But instead of admitting that, you spent 4 years, Democrat media, demonizing this man. Was he kind of a bull in a china shop? Sure. But at the end of the day, nothing the man was saying about the border was insane. The only reason I disagreed with it is because I have an insane border policy on the other side. Period. But DL is completely right. He's completely right. They took an extremely complex, difficult issue. They tried to simplify it so that they could demonize Trump. And now that they're in this situation, they're saying the same thing that Trump is saying, only worse, because at least Trump never pretended to care about those people. He never once did. You know, we were doing that debate review with Trump, and he said, look, if they're an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, a computer programmer, bring them in. But if they're criminals and all that, go over there. Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. Like, I get it. At least I know where you are. But don't do this nonsense about the whole, you're going to cry at the parking lot, you're going to do all this other stuff, and now when it's time to show out, you're going to tell those people to go home. Like you never said the other stuff before. My God. All right. Well, what can you do? Love your neighbor.
Take care of each other.
Middle America.
Show up for midterms.
Show up for the midterms, guys. Middle America, we are the media. Till next time, guys.